According to Spartan law, Leonidas' son Plistarchos was now in charge. But in 480 BCE, he was way too young to rule. In fact, if you do the math according to historical sources, Plistarchos was anywhere between 10 years old and having just been born when his father fell in battle. And so the Spartans assigned a king regent to rule in his stead, and that was Leonidas' younger brother/twin, Cleombrotos. And everything was fine, until Cleombrotos died within months of Leonidas. So now we have a problem. Because if Plistarchos' father and all of his uncles were dead, who was king regent? Did Plistarchos have any relatives left? And how are they related to our Assassin's Creed protagonists? Well, we know Cleomenes died without male issue, so we can't look any further there. Now, do you remember Prince Dorias, the second eldest son of Anaxandridas, the one who left Sparta to found a colony and died in Sicily? Well, it turns out he did have a son, and that son's name was Euryanax, and he is our first candidate for a real-life direct ancestor to Alexios and Cassandra. We know about Prince Euryanax because of Herodotus, who mentions him in Book 9 of his Histories. In Book 9, Euryanax is chosen to be joint commander of the Spartan army at the famous Battle of Plataea in 479 BCE. This epic battle, which took place only a year after Salamis and Thermopylae, would end up being the decisive land victory for the Greeks over the invading Persian army, thus helping to end the Second Greco-Persian War. The victory was a massive deal for the Greeks and a huge victory for the Spartans, who held command of the battlefield that day. But once the battle was over, Euryanax pretty much just disappears from history. We don't even know if he survived the battle, but it's clear from his position as co-commander of the Greek allies and the fact that he was nephew to Leonidas that he was very important, which means if he had had children, they would have been important too. And those children could have had a son or daughter who would have been in their 20s or 30s at the outbreak of the Second Peloponnesian War, which would make them sort of around the same age as Alexios and Cassandra. In other words, the real Leonidas could have had a great-great-niece and or nephew via Prince Euryanax. But how is it that we've never heard of Euryanax's descendants? Shouldn't Herodotus or Thucydides have mentioned them? Well, you'd think so, but maybe not. And the reason might go all the way back to what happened between Cleomenes and Dorias. You see, despite most likely being the eldest nephew of King Leonidas, Euryanax was not named king regent for Plistarchos after the first king regent, Cleombrotos, died. That title went to Euryanax's cousin, Pausanias, whom I'll talk about in a moment. What could have barred Euryanax from being king regent, thus dooming his descendants to obscurity? Well, this is just pure speculation on my part, but it could be because his father Dorias contested Cleomenes for the throne. That might in turn have caused the Spartans to bar Dorias and his descendants from being king in order to avoid a future civil war between Dorias' heirs and Cleomenes' heirs. And if I'm right about that, it might explain Euryanax's rather unusual name. According to one author, Euryanax can be translated as wandering king, as in a king without a throne or a country. Could it be Prince Dorias named his son Euryanax just to remind everyone everywhere his descendants should have been sitting the Aegeid throne? Who knows, but it's interesting if true. But the other reason Euryanax might have been barred from the throne is because he was what the Spartans called a mothox, a bastard, one born to a foreign woman or a slave. And as was common in the ancient world, bastards were often barred from inheriting their father's wealth, property, or power. But with that said, we know from historical sources like Xenophon that it wasn't unprecedented for these mothox to rise through the ranks and become successful military leaders, which is what might have happened with Euryanax. In the end, Euryanax was not made king regent, and although he most likely had children, they were far too removed from the Aegeid throne to be of much interest to historians. But they were still royalty related to Leonidas, and thus could have been real-life counterparts to Alexios and Cassandra. And they weren't the only ones.